All right, thank you for being there. Now let's talk about Nigeria's agricultural sector, its contribution to the economy of the nation. To discuss this, I have two great people in here. I have with me a farmer. You'll be surprised how she looks, but she's a farmer, Omo Okuji.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, a beautiful farmer, I must say. And also, I have an agriculturist, the person of Silvanus Obo. Welcome to the show, Silvanus.
Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm not surprised that you're an agriculturist. You do both crop farming and animal husbandry. You're into the entire agricultural thing.
Okay.
You are a man. I'm not saying that agriculture is for a specific gender, but when you see a cute woman into farming, and sometimes it's surprising, so that's why I'm not surprised what you're into, but I'm a bit surprised what Omo is into. Okay, as the show goes on, we'll get to understand what kind of farming Omo is into specifically. But Silvanus, what's your assessment of Nigeria's agricultural sector?
Well, Nigeria's agricultural sector, I believe it can be better. As it is, in its current state, economically, we tend to import more than we export at the moment. So I think our exports for last year was 960 billion, as compared to, sorry, our exports for last year was 260 billion as compared to our imports, which was about 920 billion,
Okay.
I believe. So we are still importing more than we are producing and exporting.
Oh yeah, so
Yes.
during the course of Business Roundup, we saw that Nigeria's trade deficit has risen, and
Yes.
agriculture was one of the sectors that's also experienced trade deficits.
Yes, about 690 billion. Yes.
Okay. Now, what's the contribution of agriculture to Nigeria's GDP?
Yes, sir. Over the last 4 years, it has been pretty steady. So as of 2017, we had 25%, 25.1%. 2018, 25.1% contribution to our gross domestic product. And then in 2019, the figure went to 25.2%. But as at last year, it was at 22%. But that could change as more information comes in.
Okay.
But that's understandable because of COVID-19 and insecurity.
Okay, aside from 2020, it seemed like it's been steady from 2017, 2018, 2019 at around 25% to the national GDP.
Yes.
Well, Omo, a report shows that 87% of agricultural production centers on crop production. Why do you think there's so much crop production as compared to animal farming?
When it comes to crop production for now, it's the idea behind it is one of the crop products that I'm into crop production,
Okay.
and that's mushroom farming.
Okay.
Mushroom is something that has been overlooked to an extent here in Nigeria, and it's much more appreciated by the elites in Nigeria. So currently, we go about trying to do some sort of orientation to farmers, telling them more about mushroom production, telling them about the benefits of consuming mushrooms, and over time, we're working on value addition of our products too. This will help to, this will help generally.
Okay,
the
to boost crop production.
Yeah.
Okay, but crop production seems to have more people. Like anyone who
Yes.
wants to go into farming today, the first thing that comes to mind is what crop do I produce?
Yes.
Silvanus, why do you think more persons are into crop production than in animal farming?
Yeah, the difference in relation to the two of them, animal as opposed to crop production, is that
Yes.
crop does not require a lot of investment.
Okay.
So like with your crops, what you predominantly need is your seedlings and perhaps fertilizer.
Okay.
Some of those you can make locally. But with with livestock, what you have to first get the animals in,
Okay.
and then you have to feed them on a daily basis, and it's highly cost intensive. So what tends to happen is that many people tend to go into crop farming as an alternative because it's quite cheaper.
Okay.
It's quite cheaper, so there's no much overheads in crop farming, and also it is easier to learn. It's easier to pick up.
Okay, I was going to ask that besides the capital needed to start up
Expertise.
Yes, crop farming. Do you also need expertise in animal
Yes,
farming?
you need expertise in animal farming because, for example, take poultry, for example, you need specific expertise in poultry farming to be able to prevent things, specific diseases that may affect your animals, to know at what stage you're supposed to feed the animals this or to feed. So at some stage you might need to feed the birds, for example, you may need to feed them growers as they are during the growing stages. You also need to know when to change that to finishers at some point. So it's not as technical. It's more technical than crop farming, so it's easier for more people to pick up crop farming.
Okay, with what you just said now, the need for expertise, it means that it's not a thing of luck. I've heard some persons, especially people who are into poultry farming, say, hey, maybe this person's hand is not good in poultry farming. So, Omo, you also agree, it's not a thing of luck. No. You must know exactly what to do.
Yes, and over time, experience plays a major role. Okay. So there are some things you'll be able to cut short as a farmer when you get into it. So it's not something you look out from afar and you think, okay, from there I can know what to do. No, you have to be in it. You have to really work on it yourself. Then you understand the challenges and how to overcome them.
Okay. Now, when you were talking about mushroom, you mentioned mushroom, and that the awareness of mushroom is not really there. Yes. I personally, I know that I have overlooked mushroom as a vegetable. I've overlooked it. I've not made much use of it. I think the few times I've seen mushroom before now, that has become one of the things that people are now talking about, that's one of the crops you could go into, crop farming you could go into. I just see it grow maybe on the back of trees and I just like, oh, what's that? Yeah. So why do you think a lot of us don't know much about mushroom, even to consume, not to talk of produce?
Okay, let me start with mushroom is a fungi that you find most times growing on decaying matters like dead log. You find on plantain plantations, you find them growing there. And as that's years back, that's like centuries ago, these mushrooms have been consumed, and at a point it was for the elite. Like I mentioned, not everybody is allowed to eat mushrooms in Egypt years back. It was just those that were considered royalties that could consume it at that time. Then over time, persons became too enthusiastic. They were going to do wild foraging, and in the process they ended up getting poisoned by these mushrooms, not knowing that there are different types of mushrooms. There's the edible mushroom, which you can eat for its flavor. There's the medicinal mushroom, which it's not necessarily sweet, but it has a lot of medicinal values. Okay. Then there's the poisonous one also. So at that point when people got engaged with the poisonous ones and it became a problem, there was a decline in mushroom consumption, and that's affected the whole mushroom thing. But now we are coming back telling everybody that this same mushroom that used to be like a food, a special food, is back now, and we are focusing on edible mushrooms. Mushroom has a lot of amazing benefits. So for you that you mentioned that you've not really had it to eat, probably I'll give one to you now, so you have an idea of how it tastes.
I'm waiting to have
I have the fresh one, I have the dried one. All you have to do is, for the dried one, you can rehydrate it, just introduce it to warm water, leave it for like 5 minutes, and you have the mushroom back. It tastes nice. Some persons say it tastes like chicken. Some say it tastes like...
I know it has this meaty feel when chewing.
It does. Very, very nice. And with it, those battling with some sort of ailment, it's highly recommended. So most times, it's so... You're thinking you're not eating it, but you might have. Okay, let me give you...
I think I would know if I had.
You might not know.
I've eaten like twice, and I didn't enjoy it at that time because of the way it was prepared.
Let me add this. There are some teas you take. Okay, some teas you say, yes, you say, oh, I bought this tea 15,000, I bought it 30,000. When you go to the back, what is it made up of most times? They might code the name with a botanical name, but it's mushrooms.
And you won't even know what you're taking.
Know that
so it has so many byproducts.
So many.
Okay, I'll come back to that and why you chose of all crops to go into mushroom farming. But awareness too seems to be an issue in animal farming. Around this area, when you talk about animal farming, what comes to mind is, it's cattle rearing, it's maybe the rearing of goats, poultry farming, and maybe piggery. But are there other forms of animal farming that are lucrative, that could also help us, give us more food that we perhaps are neglecting because we are not aware of them?
Okay, some farmers choose to go into rabbit farming, some go into snailries, and then tilapia and catfish production.
Okay.
Yes, so there are...
That seems to be a big business now because the demand is very high.
Yes, it is a big business at the moment, and some also go into goat farming as well.
Okay.
Yes, so there's goat, there's ram farming too. So it's quite broad. So anything that can be eaten can be, any animal that can be eaten can be farmed.
Okay. Let's talk about processing of animal products. I know that in the value chain, agricultural value chain, we have issues with some of them. Processing seems to be one of them. Of recent, I got to know that when you want to buy frozen food, for instance,
Yes.
The birds, frozen birds,
Yes.
if you go, they ask, do you want Nigerian chicken or do you want foreign? I never knew that there were a distinction between both of them.
Yeah.
But I also got to discover that from the ones I bought, that you have the Nigerian chicken, they seem to be more processed.
Okay.
They are very clean
Neater.
compared to the ones imported where you see how some of them having the feathers on them and looking a bit rough. But beyond the normal whole chicken, whole frozen chicken that you find, if you want other processes, other parts of chicken processed into different ways, you will find it. Like for instance, you want chicken fillet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we have local producers of chicken fillet.
Yeah.
If you want fish fillet, I'm not sure we have local producers
Yes.
of that. It seems those aspects have been left for the international market, and so there is high importation of such products.
Yes, there is, because to go into processing of those, like you just stated, it's highly cost intensive. So I saw a proposal last year for a processing plant for poultry, and it was going into I think it was about 1.5 billion naira. The farmers as a whole, about 80% are smallholder farmers. They can't afford to set up such facilities. So what they tend to do is you find poultry farms around the place with like 500 beds, 2,000 beds, 10,000 beds, 20,000 beds. They don't have enough capital to get and establish such facilities that will be required for processing the birds as you would want them. So that's why we tend to go abroad. So, and then the banks, although they play, to a certain extent, they assist farmers, but when it comes to getting huge loans for setting up such processing facilities, they are not easily available to the average farmer on the street. Yeah, so only for a select few, and then the select few can't meet the demand. So Nigeria spent about 22 trillion naira on food last year. So that's about 56% of the household expenditure, total household expenditure.
Okay.
So it's a lot of money we spend on food, but we can't necessarily meet all that demand because we don't have farmers don't have the enough funding to be able to exploit the market as it is. So that's why we tend to import more of
These things.
Yes.
Okay, okay, you want to add to that?
Processing processing is a major sector that is highly capital demanding.
Okay.
And it's not something most times an individual, private persons want to do. So it would be nice if the government could really look into it more. It is one way to really add value to agricultural products, and that is the way we can actually compete globally in the world.
Okay, we're going to break. When we return, we continue our discussion on Nigeria's agricultural sector. Stay with us. It's nice to know you're still there with us on Talking Business. Now, before we went on the break, we're talking about processing of agricultural products. Now, that seems to be not just an issue for those in animal farming. It seems to be like a widespread issue as far as the agricultural sector is concerned. You talked about how I may have consumed mushroom without knowing because it may have been added to some tea. It has been processed. Now, in what area have you found processing to be a challenge in crop farming?
Okay, when the major place I find it as a challenge is converting it generally and acceptance.
Okay.
Acceptance from persons. Most persons will always prefer to buy foreign produce compared to locally made produce, even till date. And we're grateful to the governor for helping, the government generally, for helping as regards that.
Now, why do you think some persons prefer foreign products over made in Nigeria products as it concerns food? One would think that, okay, if it's other things, you could say maybe the finishing is better. For whatever reason, you would want to prefer foreign. But when it concerns food that is homegrown, why do you think there's still preference for foreign products, Sylvanus?
Is okay, we'll speak about food, but it's not just localized to food alone. It's just it's across the board.
It's across the board. But
Yes.
speaking specifically about food, why should there be preference for foreign produced food
I think maybe
as
people
compared
just
to
have
homegrown?
I think people just have the mindset that imported is better, foreign is better. So it just flows into every other aspect of their life and their choices and things they buy.
Okay.
Yes, so they will expect it to be of a better standard, maybe because they feel it's the white man that is making it, so it should be much better.
Okay.
I think also packaging plays a long role in
Yes.
this.
Packaging.
We've been trying to package our products for a while now, and for us to package it to look like that of an international product, the cost of packaging it is so high.
Okay.
So high for you to meet
The
up with what they
standard.
have, because eventually most of the packaging materials are imported.
Okay.
So the packaging, number one, then for me, myself as a mushroom farmer, the processing too. The cost of processing, standard processing is expensive. For example, it's mushroom extraction is more than just the mushroom itself. There's spore extraction, and this has to do with high technology, really high technology that you don't just find anywhere. Okay, so if you don't have that, some persons might not be willing to want to make use of it, buy your products.
They may feel it's poorly made.
They
I
will
want
feel
to
that
go
way.
for the foreign
And packaging.
packaging. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
In fact, it makes it more expensive. Some foreign, locally made products are even way more expensive than some international
Yes, they are.
products.
because
Yeah.
the facilities are readily available over there than here.
Yes.
Yeah, for things like imported chicken, I think it's more expensive than locally.
Yes, it is.
Locally sourced chickens, yes. And also, like she was stating, it's quite expensive to process some of those items. But the international competition that they are having to compete with are dealing with far bigger budgets. So getting those packaging done is much easier for them.
With them
Than
than
the
for
local
the
farmers.
small farmers here.
Yes.
You were mentioning mushroom. Of all crops, why did you choose to go into mushroom farming?
I would pick mushroom farming over and over again.
Why?
Number one, the cost of production is very low. You don't need to have a lot of money to become a mushroom farmer, and you don't need a lot of space to become a mushroom farmer, because we make use of the vertical space.
Okay.
So it's not something that it just takes a lot of land space. It's not that type of farming. It's soilless, it's soft, it's a soft farming method. Who would want to do that? And the returns are high.
Okay.
The returns are high. If you work on the market properly, the returns are high. So you get a lot of turnover. If the weather, everything is okay, you get a lot. So the cost of production is low, and also because of the returns. Then the benefits. I've experienced it for myself. Okay, there's a particular mushroom I had issues sleeping. Okay, there's a particular mushroom that I cultivate, Ganoderma mushroom. It helps to relax you, and when I take it, the benefits it gives to me, it's easy marketing it. And when people use it and they come back with testimony that, oh, this is your mushroom,
So that's why
it's
you had to
fulfilling.
stay with mushroom.
Yes.
But did you ever try farming any other crop before you went into mushroom farming? Or once you thought about farming, mushroom was just it for you from the beginning?
I had other crops in mind. I did, but as at the time it was time to implement it, I just moved straight to mushroom farming. And when I tried it, it's working for me. There's
What other
no
crops
change.
did you farm on? What other crops did you try farming with?
Well, like, let me not call it crops, animals.
Oh, you
I'm
tried
thinking
animal
of- yeah, I
farming.
tried animal
Which
farming.
animal did you grow?
Birds.
Birds.
Yes.
Oh.
But it's like you said, it's way more technical than
Okay.
it looks. It's way more technical than it looks. So it wasn't really working.
Okay. Now, talking about crop farming as against animal farming, 87% of agricultural activities being centered on crop production. Before crude oil, agriculture was the mainstay of Nigeria's economy. We heard of the groundnut pyramid, we heard of cash crops, you know, cocoa and all of that. Now, Sylvanus, in your assessment, what do you think has happened to all of those crops in terms of the quantity of production and the value they are still adding to the economy?
Okay, as with any economy, where the government puts a lot of investment in, is always going to grow and expand much quicker. So for the cash crops, they are still being produced, but not at the same, there's no much focus on them as before the inception of crude oil.
Okay.
So the question is, how do we bring that back?
How is it today, and how do we get to the level it was before, if it's no longer at the same level today?
Yes. So the African Union, for example, understood this, that it's not going to get back to the level it used to be since the inception of crude oil. So they suggested that countries should spend 10% of their annual budget on agriculture, but we only spend about 1.8% of our annual budget on agriculture.
So we're still like 9.2% or 8.2% short.
Yes. So, and if we were to able to increase that number to the 10 that was prescribed by the African Union, I believe to a certain extent we'll be able to even get more people involved in agriculture, which could create more jobs for young people in society. We have a lot of young graduates coming out of universities these days with no form of employment, available form of employment. So I think it's just investment it needs. Yes.
Okay, talking about agriculture providing employment as a tool for employment, what would be your suggestion? You're an agriculturist, you do both.
Yes.
It is what you do. What would be your advice for the person who wants to take up agriculture as an employment? What would you say they should do first, they should not do?
I think they should go for training.
Training, whether it's crop production,
or whether it's animal production, because you need knowledge. So it's better to have gone through the training and understand what you are doing from the beginning, as opposed to doing trial and error. Trial and error, you spend a lot of money and a lot of time wasted in trial and error, as opposed to if you just found someone who's experienced and who has the ability to impact that knowledge in you, and then to put you straight.
Also, now let me add to that. Also, the agro business, there's the inputs, there's the production, and there's the processing. So most persons are focusing on production alone. That's where the problem is. Processing is a very, very new market that we need to look into. The same thing with inputs. Although we know we rely a lot on other countries to give us inputs, but there's still more that can be done.
When you say inputs, can you break it down?
I'm talking of seedlings sometimes. I'm talking of even the strains of animals that are used sometimes. Yes.
Okay.
I think the reason why people focus on the production aspect is that it's probably the cheapest aspect of the
easy
trade.
To get into.
It's the easiest one to get into. So if you are talking about processing, the amount of money involved in that, the average farmer doesn't have that money. Even when they form their cooperatives, it's also difficult for them to get that money. So it's that would be why. So if you ask, well, I think the government tried to help with the processing aspect, because they created special agricultural processing zones. But they've spoken about creating that for farmers. Yeah, so they've tried to help with that. But in terms of getting into that area, as for somebody looking to go into agriculture, it still requires expertise, because you need engineers and people who understand how it's done. You need funding to purchase the materials, you need to set up the plant. So it is quite cost intensive. So you won't find a lot of people going in there. It will just be the high profile and high net worth individuals in society who the banks are willing to give those loans to that will go into such areas, you find.
Now, exploring opportunities. What are the opportunities, areas where opportunities are bound? I know that since it's agriculture, you'd always have a market for it, but there may be some specific areas that the opportunities, the market opportunities are bound. In terms of crop production, which would you say opportunities are bound, and so you would encourage people to go into it?
Okay, the health sector. There's a lot of collaboration that can go on between the agricultural sector and health, as like researchers and all that, because at a point there was a time the moringa was overlooked, but at a point it blew up. Like, oh, moringa, I want moringa everywhere. So the same thing with let me talk from my own view, mushrooms. it could be it should be looked into. In fact, it is so broad. It is so broad. So I think one sector that we should look into is the health
Why
sector.
do you think mushroom is coming to the eyes of people now, having been neglected for several years? Moringa, I'm sure, was there, maybe as old as man, but at a certain time it became like we just discovered this product, we just discovered this crop. Why do you think the attention is now coming to mushroom? What are the benefits of mushroom that perhaps is bringing the attention of people to it now?
Okay. Never before has there been an era like this where people are much more aware of the benefits of mushrooms and much more aware about what immunity is. Ever since COVID came on board, it's easier for me to explain to people what immunity is all about. And when you talk about mushrooms, you wouldn't go too far. You start talking about immunity, because mushroom helps to boost your immunity. It also contains a lot of antioxidants. So generally our body, once you're growing, you're aging, you start producing free radicals. These free radicals are what leads to some diseases, diabetics, cancer and all that. And yes, your body has some antioxidants that helps to fight these free radicals, but there's more to it than that. You need an external antioxidant,
Like
also,
a supplement.
like a supplement. And it shouldn't even be, let's just say, like food. Okay, so
the food, you're eating it now, not just because maybe you're hungry of it, but also as a supplement.
yes,
Okay.
it helps to boost your immunity. It helps also with those battling with cholesterol. Several persons, there's something called a meat replacement therapy, where you either substitute all your meat or part of your meat with mushrooms. Mushrooms
So it has a meaty feel.
It
when
does.
chewing.
It does. zero cholesterol. In
So
fact,
you
it
could
helps
deceive you could actually
eradicate
deceive
bad
your
ones.
body that you're eating meat,
Yes,
whereas
you-
you're eating something else.
You're eating mushrooms and it still tastes like meat. Okay, and another thing is the flavor.
Okay.
It has an amazing flavor. It's called the umami flavor. There are 4 tastes generally. We have the bitter, sweet, sour and salty, but scientists couldn't really put mushroom into any of those 4, so they created a new class for it. It has an amazing flavor that is called the umami flavor. So when you add it to your soup, you add it to your stew, even if it's just the powder.
Oh, you can add mushroom to your soup, not just your stew.
You can add it to
Anything.
almost anything. In fact, you can add the powder to your tea. So it's more than just you're eating. You're also eating something that will help to boost your immunity.
So that's one area where the market opportunity abound. Now we'll come back to that. I want to know how the international market is for mushroom as against the local market. But let's also talk about the areas of opportunities in animal farming.
Okay, animal farming, we don't currently meet the demand for animals in the market. So,
So we consume much of
yeah, we
animal
consume a
products.
lot of it. In terms of meat, beef, fish, chicken, eggs, we consume a lot of animal produce. And then there's a lot of opportunity in it. You have a lot of young, energetic people in society most of whom lack direction. They don't know what to do with their lives. So you find some of them going into other forms of engagement, or let me call them employments, which may be good, beneficial to societies, some may not be beneficial to societies. And then there are other organizations, like I attended a meeting last week of these young Edo State Pig Farmers Associations, and these are young men who are looking to revolutionize the pig farming sector in Edo State. But you find that they have constraints, and those constraints, majority of the time, are financial.
Okay.
And because of the impacts of COVID-19 and the macroeconomic factors, you find that even the cost of doing business for them are rising.
Okay.
So there's no such subsidization for these farmers. So some complained, for example, in the meeting last week, that the cost of feeding the animals have gone up 20–25%. Some 50%, depending on what they're
Are these feeds locally made or imported?
Some are locally made, and some ingredients required for the feed are imported.
Okay.
So, and when there's a currency fluctuation or any, for example,
It also impacts
their businesses. So I could say subsidization in agriculture to a certain extent, or both crop and animal husbandry could create opportunities for employment as well as.
So anyone you go into, the market opportunities abound.
Yes, we spend 22 trillion naira on food. So there's a lot of opportunity, and then we import a lot of those food. So there is opportunity.
So if more people go into animal husbandry, they are definitely sure that yes,
if you
they
go
will be
in
gainfully employed.
Yes, if you go into animal husbandry, like I said at the beginning, and you go with the right mindset and training,
Of
you
course,
should, and funding, you should be able to do well.
How do we deal with this competition with the foreign market? Because it seems like in every agricultural activity you indulge in, whether it's crop production, whether it's animal husbandry, you must have foreign inputs.
Yes.
Either as feeds or as anything, as fertilizers, you must patronize the foreign markets. How do we bridge that gap? How do we ensure that the gains, because agriculture is something that is a sector where money rolls in, but it seems like most of this money gets out of the country. How do we tackle this?
I think investments and awareness. So
in the value chain.
Yes. So in those things we normally import, if the government could create investment and specific loans for farmers who are willing to go into those areas, that could help. So that means, for example, if we normally import, say, wheat, and the government decides that they will provide loans for wheat farmers to be able to expand their production, that would help.
Okay.
Yes, that would help.
All right. Now back to what's the prospects internationally and locally for mushroom?
Well, mushroom business is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the world, and unfortunately, the whole of Africa is here to take even up to 1% of that market. This shows that there's a lot that we can do, and let's take it back to Nigeria. When I started, one of the issues I encountered was foreign competitors. They come in with their products, and theirs is even, they've added all sorts of preservatives to it. Mine is just 100% organic. So
the ones who produce here 100% natural,
100%
no additives,
natural,
as against the foreign
nothing
ones.
of such. So that is one. The foreign markets are becoming, they are becoming more of like a competitors to us here. And if we know we want to really beat that, we have to make sure our mushrooms also look as nice. So you wouldn't want to bring a funny looking mushroom and you put it close to another that looks way healthy. Nobody will want to buy us. So comparing the local and international markets, there's a lot of prospects for mushroom farmers here in Nigeria, but you have to make sure your products look as nice for it to be able to compete with those international mushroom products that we have here in the country.
So you mean like to implement more modern farm practices?
Yes.
Okay, so modern practices are needed to have the clean look at the end of the day that's appealing to the end consumer. All right, now in this period, April, May, June, you find that a lot of crops are coming up. You find maize, you find a lot of fruit in abundance, very, very cheap. But once we get past the season of some of these crops, it's hard to find, apart from corn. I doubt if you can find mango in August anywhere, except maybe for those that are imported into the country. That brings us to storage. Are there local ways we can store some of our food so that we don't waste them when they're in season, and we also have them when they're out of season?
Okay. In terms of storage, at the moment, most of the way we would normally go with it will involve drying or adding some form of preservatives. So we can't really store them fresh for long periods, and that has to do with infrastructure. So our electrical infrastructure is not the best. Not to sugarcoat, it's not the best. And if we could work, so for the agricultural sector to progress, we need 3 main areas looked at. One of them is security. So our farmers who go to the farm to farm, are they secure on their farmland? The other one is electricity, in order to be able for them to process their produce. And then 4, actually, good roads to transport their goods from the farm,
so they don't even begin to perish while on the way.
And then the final one should be I've lost my trail of thought.
Okay.
Yes.
The storage.
Storage, yes.
So that we can store them and have them all seasons.
Yes, yes.
Okay, let me add to that. There is a lot that needs to be done as regards research.
Okay.
Some mangoes can actually grow all year round. They are called genetically modified
okay,
food
the
and
GMOs.
seeds. For now, it's not been accepted in the country, which I think it's advisable because its effects over time for like 50, 70, 100 years is not yet known. So genetically modified food has not really been accepted in Nigeria. So you hardly find corn growing all year round, but it's a normal thing in a lot of developed countries. And we could still do our own native way of doing all these hybrids and all, but there will still be a lot of funding to go into research because research is not cheap.
So the agricultural sector also needs lots of research.
Yes, it does.
Now, why is this hesitation to accept some of this new products like the GMOs, genetically modified products and all? Do you think some of them are harmful or is just ignorance?
Personally, I don't think they are harmful.
Okay.
Because you're trying to manipulate the product on a genetic level.
Okay.
So, for example, if you know that this is the gene responsible for spoilage,
okay,
you could manipulate it in such a way that that tomato that would have lasted for 2 days, 3 days, can last for 6 months.
Okay.
So you're just manipulating the gene,
okay,
not necessarily changing the chemical and all that makeup of the food.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to be dangerous. That's my own personal view, but I understand where the government is coming from. It's trying to protect its own, our people, considering that the prolonged effects is not known yet.
Okay.
But still, we consume a lot of genetic modified food.
So, okay, in the final analysis, it seems like there needs to be a meeting between all the stakeholders so that the researchers, the farmers, all of them, and even government can have this common understanding about all of these things so we can improve our agricultural sector. Now, in 1 minute, as a wrap up, what do you think we should do to move the contribution of agriculture to the economy beyond that 25% it has stayed on for quite some years? Sibanis.
Sorry, investment.
Investments.
Yes, and then she mentioned research and development. Research and developments will enable you enter new areas.
Okay.
And then investments is quite important because the farmers are willing, they are available. It's just they don't have the empowerment to fulfill their dreams. So like I mentioned about the Young Farmers Association, those guys have the ideas, for example, on how they would want to change the pig farming markets. They know of the specific breeds and all that they want, but they need funding.
All right. Okay, this is where we'll wrap up the discussion today. We do hope that investment needed, research, and everything to improve the agricultural value chain so that the contribution of agriculture to the economy can increase would happen. Thank you, Omo, for coming on the show. Thank you very much, Sibanis. It's been nice having both of you here. My name is Blessing Aiche. Before I go, I want to say this to you. Let's begin to accept those homegrown things that are good for us. It's not when we see them online and then it becomes everything everybody rushed to and then it becomes very expensive. That's when we begin to appreciate these things. Until next week, stay safe and bye.